What's going on, guys? This is Travesty here, and today I'm bringing you my Week 2 team analysis for the Pokemon Premier League in Division 2. Now this week we face none other than the other Australian coach and the Melbourne Victory Star. So that is Electric Storm 252, or Jack. And yeah, we both have Melbourne teams, which is going to be pretty interesting. So we have called this week the ShowDownUnder, courtesy of Shroomraver, the lord of terrible puns. In any case, I am going to get into the team real quick. So, as I said, Coach Electric Storm 252, and he can be bringing a very, very spooky team, which consists of Infernape, Salamence, Registeel, Dragalge, Hitmontop, Tauros, Mega Altaria, Electros, and Suicune. I hate his team so much. It's such a pain, because he has really, really fat core, and he has some things that are just unbelievable threats. They're so hard to prepare for, like Infernape, Altaria, even Salamence is difficult to prepare for, and Dragalge just doesn't have the switch-ins. So yeah, he's drafted really, really well, even though people are commenting on like the Triple Dragon core, they're actually really, really spooky altogether. So yeah, I'm terrified, honestly. He also won his first match, whereas we didn't, so that's kind of a thing. So the first mon that I knew I had to bring was Nidoqueen. Now Nidoqueen can basically destroy most of his team, and I'm going to use it a bit differently than you might expect. What I think Jack is expecting, and what I did consider bringing, is just, standard Life Orb Nidoqueen with, Thunderbolt to hit Suicune, or Thunder Punch, probably Thunderbolt to be honest. Poison Jab / Sludge Wave to hit Altaria, Earth coverage, ground coverage to hit Registeel, and Ice coverage for the other dragons, that kind of thing. But the only issue with that was it got outsped by a lot of things, namely Altaria, Infernape, Salamence, Tauros, all those kind of things, and they could bring it down really, really quickly. So the issue with Nidoqueen is I either had to Scarf it, in which case it lost that valuable power and coverage, or had to rely on predicting switches and that kind of thing, and it's just didn't fit what I needed it to do. So instead I've gone with a bulky Nidoqueen, with the investment meaning it doesn't get 3-hit KO'd by an Earthquake from Infernape, or an Earthquake from Tauros. I think it would actually get 3-hit KO'd by Tauros, but that's a different thing. And Altaria, for example, it can tank hits and go for that powerful Poison Jab and 2-hit KO it that way. So I decided to go with a bulkier spread, because it also helps deal with his setup sweepers. Now a lot of his setup sweepers are actually slow, so you could be bringing like Coil on Electros, or Crocoon, or Curse Registeel, that kind of thing. And so having that Dragon Tail to phase them out is going to be really, really nice. I also wanted this to be my Stealth Rocker, because my only other rocker in Cobalion I needed for a different job this week. And Stealth Rocks are going to be really helpful against his team, because I don't really see him bringing hazard removal. I didn't want to put Toxic Spikes as well. I did look at it, but when he has Electros, Registeel, Altaria will not get affected by it the first time it switches in. He has a Dragalge, which just gets rid of them straight up. I didn't particularly think it was useful, especially given things that would be affecting, like Suicune, for example, it would be useful on. It's probably going to have Rest, so I'm not sure. I decided Toxic Spikes weren't worth it this week, but went with a bulky Nidoqueen. The investment means I get a guaranteed OHKO on Infernape, and guaranteed 2-hit KO on Altaria. Also just does a lot of damage to other things, and yeah, the bulky spread allows me to wall a couple of things actually. Which is why I picked Nidoqueen over Nidoking, is it's actually pretty fat, as well as being an offensive powerhouse. I do have Black Sludge on there because it's the only form of recovery that it gets. Now, next mon that I decided to bring, and it's very, very similar to last week's, is Mega Sableye. Again, it's here to basically stop rocks going up and any other form of status, and again, it's a mixed defensive spread to take on any variant of Infernape. Now, if it's a banded Infernape or something like that, it will be able to 2-hit KO me, but if it's banded, I have things to switch into it. Like, if it locks itself into Flare Blitz, I can bring Lantern. If it goes for close combat, I have Sableye, that kind of thing. If it goes for Earthquake, I can go to Togekiss, so I don't really see him bringing banded. I see him potentially bringing Life Orb, in which case he'll rack up a lot of recoil with Flare Blitz Life Orb, for example, and Zen Headbutt will be really nice to help take him down that way. I have Recover on there because I need this thing to stay healthy. Will-O-Wisp because, as I said, not bringing Toxic Spike, so it means burns are going to be really nice to help wear down something on his team, mainly Suicune, for example. I'd probably rather Toxic that, but that's a different story. Registeel, Tauros to help weaken it, Altaria if it's DD, that kind of thing. Now, Icy Wind is the weird move there. It's doing a lot of the same things I needed Low Sweep for last week, which is to slow things down. So if something is setting up on me, and I have no way to deal with it, I can Icy Wind the Altaria, for example, which actually does a decent chunk of damage. I can Icy Wind the Salamence. If they're running sub to try and avoid that Will-O-Wisp, Icy Wind will break the sub, won't lower their speed, but hopefully I can deal with it that way. Now, I would have thought that Sableye could wall the crap out of Tauros, like a normal variant of Tauros. If it was just a normal Tauros in OU, for example, then Sableye, yeah, would take it on really well. But this being a draft league, it could be carrying something like Roleplay or Natural Gift with a Key Berry, which gives it a base 100 Fairy type move, which would not be good if I let Sableye go down to that. So I'm going to need to scout for those a little bit, I guess. I don't know. We'll see if he brings Tauros. It could actually be a really big problem because it outspeeds my entire team. But because of that difficulty with speed, I have brought the next mon, if my mouse could work, next mon, which is Choice Scarfed Kyurem. Basically, max special attack, modest, enough speed so that it's guaranteed to outspeed a Mega Altaria if it gets one Dragon Dance. I can't outspeed Salamence if it's running max speed Jolly, which it probably will, or at least it will sped crept me. Sped crept the Kyurem. Let's have Ice Beam, Dragon Pulse, Focus Blast, and Draco Meteor. Now, I hate having to run Focus Blast. I wish I could run Earth Power, honestly, but Registeel is just too bulky. And the problem with Scarfed Earth Power is then he can just bring in Electros. And Electros is also a problem for this thing because an AV set kind of walls it, and he's probably going to have Drain Punch. So, yeah. This thing, although it doesn't completely break down his team, it's a nice safety net to have late game against things like Altaria, against things like Infernape, because Mach Punch surprisingly doesn't actually do too much. Like, it does 30%, but Kyurem can take a couple. Well, namely 2. It's also really nice to be able to outspeed that Tauros, because he'll probably be tempted to go for something like Iron Head, and I can bop it with a Draco, or a Dragon Pulse, or an Ice Beam, depending on how low it is. I would not risk Focus Blast unless I absolutely had to. It also helps with... I've completely lost my train of thought. I think that's actually pretty much it. It's basically just a nuke button. My options for nukes are this thing, Nidoqueen, and Darmanitan, and as I said, Nidoqueen had to be bulky, and Darmanitan just got stopped in its tracks by Suicune. Couldn't do much to a Mega Altaria, had Earthquake for Dragalge, but Darmanitan just didn't really have the same matchup that Kyurem did, whereas Kyurem, if in particular Registeel gets worn down, I can spam Ice Beam or Dragon Pulse, and I could really hurt things, especially if Altaria hasn't Mega Evolved. Dragon Pulse will hit anything hard on the switch in. If he brings specially defensive Suicune, I'll only be doing like 25%, but if I can get Rocks up, if I can get Toxic, I can deal with Suicune that way. One of the things I have to deal with Suicune, oh, by the way, the weird investment, like 4 in 3 different stats, is because, as I've said a couple of times in team analysis, at level 50 you need the first 4 makes a difference to your stat, and then you need multiples of 8. So having 12 leftover EVs after my speed creep, I could either put them all into HP or all into something else, but the issue was I wanted an odd HP number, so with 4 HP investment, a 31 IV Kyurem gets a 201 HP, which means I can take 4 switches into Rocks if I need to. And then, because I only had 8 left over, it was better to split them into both defenses rather than have useless EVs somewhere. So yeah, that's why that's all a bit weird. So the next one, which I said helps deal with Crocoon, is Togekiss, and I'm bringing my second choice Scarfer because this one I don't expect to be scarfed for very long. Basically, I want to be able to, again, it speed ties with +1 Mega Altaria, and Dazzling Gleam does a lot. So if I can keep the scarf on it for that, that could be nice. But if not, I am able to trick the scarf onto Registeel, or Electros, or Suicune. Any three of those, I would love to get rid of their item and scarf them, basically, because if they're scarfed, I have ways to deal with any individual one of their moves, and it means they can't recover, a lot easier to deal with, and I can basically break them down that way. Air Slash is there because the Oko is Infinite. Dazzling Gleam hits Altaria, it hits Salamence. That's the only problem with him having 3 dragons, is fairy coverage and ice coverage really hurts his team, and I have powerful versions of both of those. The Psyshock is there because it 2-hit KOs Dragalge, which is potentially going to be really nice because that thing is a problem to switch into. Obviously I get completely walled by Registeel, but against especially defensive Registeel, the maximum I could do is something like Fire Blast, would be like 45%, which is good damage, but I think I would rather trick onto it rather than go for that kind of damage, because I have other things which can actually deal really well with Registeel, like Nidoqueen, Focus Blast from Kyurem, I'm gonna miss it, I guarantee, and namely Mega Sableye, which just completely walls it. So yeah, that's sort of my plan with that mon. The next one I have is my only possible switch in to Dragalge, which is Assault Vest Cobalion. He will probably be running Focus Blast, but as I've said a couple of times, Focus Blast misses a lot. So I'm not going to say I'm going to rely on the miss, but I can switch in on any move that isn't a Focus Blast, absolutely chew it, and Cobalion can actually be an offensive problem for his team. So I have Zen Headbutt because it hits Dragalge harder than anything else I have. Close Combat is just really good stab. It means I can guaranteed Oko the Infernape. No, not the Infernape, the Tauros. Because I potentially will need to take an EQ from that thing, and if I can get rid of it, it's a huge weight off my shoulders. It also doesn't Oko Infernape, but it does around 60 to 70% with Close Combat. It does a lot of damage with my investment. And I Speed Tie with it, and again, its priority isn't going to hit me too hard. And if he's special, then he actually can't 2-hit carry me. Like, I think I probably could, actually. It's still an Infernape. I haven't couched that much with it because I'm hoping I don't have to leave Cobalion in on an Infernape and hope for a Speed Tie. In any case, and then Iron Head is just there because it's good stab, and it hits Altaria, which is also a potential problem, but I will outspeed it before it sets up Dragon Dances, and Iron Head is a 2-hit KO. That's pretty much all Cobalion can do. I have Volt Switch there because I can get a little bit of momentum because he has things that can easily switch into this, mainly Suicune, which is just such a fat mon, I hate it. So if I can Volt Switch on that, Volt Switch will do negligible damage. I'm running Jolly because I don't need the damage from Volt Switch. The main way to deal with Suicune is to Volt Switch out and bring in the next mon, which is my, if it's just gonna load, my Lantern. There we go. So I'm bringing Water Absorb Lantern. I tossed up between Volt Absorb, Water Absorb because Electros is a thing. But I figured I have an electric immunity in the form of Nidoqueen. I don't have a Scald immunity at the moment, and that's going to be really, really useful to stop straight up Crocoon. I also thought of bringing Toxicroak, but there is no way he's not bringing Extra Sentry on Suicune. Like, he can't afford to run standard Crocoon when I have 2 potential Water Absorbers, one of which can set up and then basically sweep him. So he's going to be running Extra Sentry on Suicune. Because of that, basically, Lantern doesn't really care if he has Extra Sentry, because it still only does around 17%. Now, I'm running Toxic. I do expect him to have Rest, but if I can force him to go for Rest, so what I'm thinking is bring this thing on Suicune. If I start setting up a Calm Mind, I Toxic it, Volt Switch out, bring in Togekiss, and Trick. If he goes for Scald, I can bring this thing back in. If he goes to Extra Sentry, I have Mega Sableye. If he goes for Rest, or another Calm Mind, then he's locked into that and it's not a problem. Same thing goes for Electros. If I can Toxic it, Volt Switch out. Probably not into Togekiss straight away. I'll have to see exactly what's happening, that kind of stuff. But again, I can force them to go for rest, potentially trick them a Scarf. I can't do that to Registeel, but Nidoqueen can basically take on Registeel and Dragon Tail it out if need be, or just do a lot of damage with Earthquake. I have that slow Volt Switch, which is going to be really nice for momentum. I considered reverse speed creeping things, but decided it wasn't really worth it because something like Electros does a lot to me with Giga Drain, so I'd rather outspeed it and switch out. Dragalge as well. If I need to, I can go for Ice Beam, but I would probably just Volt Switch out into my Cobalion for that. I also have Scald on there because Scald burns are nice, and I don't think he would leave Infernape in on this thing, knowing that I fought physically defensive before, so I can just Volt Switch or Scald pretty much everything, Ice Beam in case I need to on something like Salamence or Altaria. So yeah, that's what Lantern's role is, and this thing has been a beast, can I just say. Really, really happy with my pickup of Lantern. Now again, my mass isn't working. So that's going to be my team for week 2. I hope you guys are really, really pumped for the second week. We're going to make a comeback. We are going to try our best to win, as usual, and hopefully we can win the Australian grudge match. So, that will go up on next Wednesday, the 16th of September. I'm not actually sure when I'm going to upload this video because we're battling a long time in advance because Jack's going away, so yeah. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I will catch you in my next upload.